Hello, my beautiful friends. Welcome. Anna, Alchemist of the Arts here, and today we're going to be talking about the full moon in Leo, which is happening on January the 25th, 2024. So this theme is going to be all about our confidence, our life decisions, making empowered decisions, and actually finding those places, what has been hidden from us, in terms of where we've invested our energy in things that maybe no longer align with us. Maybe we're no longer interested in them. Maybe we've been running on autopilot, or maybe we've been sold a dream that we realize suddenly isn't what it's made up to be. There could be so many different situations in your life that are coming up right now. And it's really important to see how these energies come across for you. But most importantly, full moons often illuminate what it is that we need to release. That's the most common association with this time if you choose to work with the lunar energies. It's also a really powerful time for bringing light to what it is that needs to be revealed. And in that capacity, in my work with the runes, I've actually chosen a rune for this time. And this time I have chosen Kenaz. Now, Kenaz is very much, it can be referred to as the torch, but it is a rune of illumination. It guides the path ahead of us. It shines light on the deep truth, the things that have been hidden. And I couldn't think of a better rune to really help work with the current energies. So this is something that I've painted. I did share, I'll link it down below. I did share a post on the history, the etymology, so the origins of the name, Kenaz, Ken, Kana. There's a few different ones depending on the language, but we can really look at what this rune represents and then how we can work with it as an individual to make the most of these energies. And, you know, as with some of the references to this rune itself, some of the references are a boil or an ulcer. These are really unpleasant things that most people in the present day don't have to worry about. And even if we did, they wouldn't necessarily be as life-threatening as they might have been to our ancient ancestors. However, what this can represent is something that is laying dormant, something that is held within us, inside of us, that needs to be released, that needs to be brought to the surface in order to be healed. And at this time, I think anything that doesn't bring us a sense of fulfillment, a sense of passion, that doesn't inspire us or light us up, is something that we need to review and to look at. Now, let's be realistic. All of us have things in life that we need to do in order to sustain our lives, our livings, our livelihoods, our lifestyles. However, there comes a point at which the juice is no longer worth the squeeze. And it's not that thing, we don't go and then do nothing, because obviously that for most of us isn't an option. But we have to ask ourselves, what is it that I need to do that is going to bring me more fulfillment, that is going to allow me to embody more of my true self and to share more of that with the world, with my friends, with my family, with the people that I interact with on a daily basis. I wasn't sure whether or not I would share the story, but it feels right actually for both the energy and for the way this conversation is going. So tomorrow, so at the time of filming this, tomorrow is the 25th, which is the full moon. It's also my eldest daughter's birthday. And for those of you that are not aware, as many of you wouldn't be, many years ago, I ran a business as a cake decorator. And I was quite good at this. I absolutely loved it. I specialized in sometimes creepy, sometimes gothic, sometimes unusual, but always very unique wedding cakes and birthday cakes. And that became my thing. I did no end of Viking themed cakes and I loved it. But I knew when my youngest daughter was going to be born, that being able to do that job was going to be too much, that it was going to be a literal too much work, with the deadlines being what they were. And I made the decision that I wasn't going to go back to it. And that was really, really difficult. And it brought with it a whole wave of uncertainty, especially as I just reached a point with that where I'd started being quite successful and had reached a really good level where I could begin to access really good opportunities. So it seemed on one hand to make absolutely zero sense, but at the same time, I also knew that there was something bigger calling to me, there was a bigger sense of purpose, something that I wanted to share, which for me was more esoteric. It was sharing more of my spirituality, my personal beliefs, my own growth journey, which had been the way I'd overcome so many of life's challenges and grown into a deeper understanding of myself. So I made that decision. And even now, though my children are older, I often think myself sometimes, and people have asked me, why don't you go back to it? And there is a logical argument for why I could or even should at some points in my life have done that. However, there was always an argument against, but I knew there was something more I needed to do. And that was the path that I pursued. And I don't regret that at all. And the reason I bring this up is because I was thinking about it as I was decorating my daughter's birthday cake today. And that's really the only time that I do cakes now, considering it was something that I did so much for so long. You know, I lived and breathed it. And the second part of this was the second part of the story that felt really important to share at this time was that's a very specific skill. And, you know, I completed a really complicated wood carving project last week. Again, that's a really specific skill. Portrait painting, understanding the runes and bind runes. These are really specific skills. And these are things that are learned. They're not things that are necessarily, you're not born with them. You know, if I took on a complicated cake project, then I would have had to have gone and researched the skills, researched the design, put that together, worked out what skills and materials I needed, and then worked out how I needed to do that. And over a period of time, my skill set improved and I got better, and I got to the point where I built a reputation for being quite good at that. But it was learned. And I think this is relevant because if anybody at any point right now feels that they cannot do something that their heart is calling them to do, that their spirit is perhaps showing them on one way or another, I would love to do this. It feels like I'm being pulled in this direction. And over, we're the one that stands in the way and says, no, I can't. I'm not talented enough. Look at all these other people. They're so amazing at this. I'm never going to be at that level. I promise you, I am a living testament to the fact that you can go and learn a skill. And actually, this ties into another sort of quirk of mine. I'm not trying to make this video all about me, but this is a full moon in Leo. And this is very much looking at ourselves and introspecting. I'm trying to give you some practical examples of what this energy has been revealing to me and how it might trigger similar experiences in you. I was a very difficult child in a lot of ways, and a very difficult child to teach anything to. And to this day, I am far better at going off on my own and maybe watching some YouTube videos or reading some books, observing people, and then going and doing something. And I will just do it. And I would injure myself wood carving a million times over before I learned how the right way was to do that. And it wouldn't necessarily matter whether or not I had gone to school to study that or taken a class in it, because I just function better learning in the way that I learn. So there is something within you that is very, very unique to you. And within me, that was a very specific way of learning, because I can be difficult around those things. So that's me. But also there is skills that we can learn. There is something within you. There is a calling within you, a passion within you that you might want to follow. And at this time, with this full moon, it could really be coming up right now. And it could be something that you might have, again, I know I say this quite a lot, but you might have forgotten about a very long time ago. And we have had, you know, some major celestial movements. We've had Pluto going into Aquarius, which I will talk about more in another video, but I've started going into it. But this really wasn't what this video was about. But we're moving into an age where having those skills, understanding our skills, understanding what makes us unique. And actually, it's often those quirks, the things that make us different, things that we can reject within ourselves, or things that we don't actually like about ourselves. Maybe other people made us feel wrong for those things. And that could have been as much about them as it was about us. their perception of us that they shared. And maybe as children or as younger people or just at more vulnerable times in our life, we absorb that viewpoint, their worldview, as a criticism. And that becomes a part of us. And this energy is all about identifying what it is within us that we're ready to let go of, because we realize it isn't us anymore. And this could be absolutely anything. Like I said, it could be that belief of, I can't learn any new skills, I'm too old, or I don't learn, or I find it impossible to be in that environment. Well, there is something within you that is unique, and there will be a way of learning those things. But it's most likely going to be self-led. And I think in all cases, if we find ourselves at this crossroads, if this is, if we find ourselves, because I know some people might be like, well, you're really privileged to have been able to do that. It's been a lot of work, and I've spent many hours where I've barely slept to give myself the time in order to learn those skills. That was a decision I made. And the onus here on this being a full moon in Leo is that we can make those decisions. We can make the decisions that feel right to us, whether that's to leave something behind or to embark upon something new, a brand new adventure, something that is really, really calling us, and maybe a completely new direction. You could have experienced a major shift within yourself, something almost like a freeing up of something within you. And all of a sudden it's like, okay, you know what? I'm really not holding on to that anymore. I'm not going to be weighed down by that. I'm not going to be shackled by that any longer. And within that, you find a sense of freedom and an ability to move forwards and embrace and do something new. And that can be really, really beautiful. But it's also often and equally terrifying. But I read something, I can't remember where it was now, and it was, you know, courage. Oh, I know where it was. It was actually in a film. It was a Disney film. And people aren't, it's something like, courage isn't the absence of fear. It can only exist with fear. And often our makings, our journey, our making, our powerful story comes from when we work through our difficulties, or we choose to go on that adventure, or we make that empowered decision and we go and study that thing, or we take that course, or we leave that relationship, or we start that new relationship. You know, it's those decisions that we make with our good in mind, but recognizing that actually we have something more to share. We have something more to offer. And that what we're doing is letting go of everything that has been weighing us down, has been making us feel unhappy, or has been making us feel limited or blocked, or like we only have one path, because there are many. And finding the thing that is currently speaking to us of joy and fulfillment and purpose as well. So take note of what is coming up with you right now. Take note of where you might feel like you're ready to make changes, or you're being shown different possibilities, different pathways, different potential for new. And it's not to say that we're going to get to the full moon and somehow magically it's all going to change. That isn't really how this works from my point of view. From my point of view, these energies arise within us, and as sensitive vibrational people, as people very much in tune and a part of the waters of the earth, we see how the tides and the moon affects those. You know, that affects that within us too. So we have this openness to work with these energies. We experience these shifting energies, just like the shifting tides on the, you know, of the ocean, of the seas. We experience those shifts as well. And in those times, we move in a different direction. We explore different opportunities. We make empowered decisions. And those in turn put us on a slightly different path or lead us in a slightly different direction. And that's how, you know, lunar cycle by lunar cycle, we keep focusing on our self-development and checking in with ourselves on what it is that we're doing. Does this feel right? Does this feel aligned? And for many of us, we could feel like actually there are things that really no longer we want to do. And it could be that in order to really confirm that to ourselves, we go through cycles of, oh, maybe I'll just try it. Maybe I'll just see, I haven't done this thing in ages, so let's just try it. And then no, you get your proof, you get what it was you were looking for. But sometimes we have to do that self-inquiry. We go through that process, whether that's an inner process or an actual physical going and doing something to try it process. But either way, you've explored an opportunity, and that gives you a sense of completion with something. So there is one other thing that I will just touch on quickly before I get into the runes, because I appreciate that I'm taking up a lot of your time. And I do rabbit on in these videos. I hope you're here for it if you enjoy these. The other big thing that is coming through for me is this three-way changing of paths. Now, the energy at the moment feels like it's building to an almost like a clash of the titans kind of a thing going on, if I'm honest with you, at one level. It feels like there is this big opposition being created, and that's really challenging energy to be in. And the only guidance I can really offer for that is to really find your own truth and to know your own truth, especially if there is a lot of distractions or a lot of people forcing lines in the sand and causing others to try and pick a side. And this is on a range of topics, and not just on a large scale, but within our personal lives as well. So this three-way picking a new pathway energy for me feels like there is going to be some major changes within some of our great institutions. And again, this doesn't necessarily mean it's going to happen like right now, but I feel over the next year or two, we're going to see some major changes in some of these big organizations. There is going to be a lot of truth coming to light, but also within our own lives, we're going to see on personal scales this truth coming to light, things coming to the surface. And the other two ways I can see this happening is either something being shown to us through our experiences with others, through conversations, through things that actually are happening in our world, whether it's within our jobs or relationships or friends, the interactions we're having with others. Or it's going to be a very inner process and realization that comes from our own work. I mean, different situations, this could be, we could have the different experiences. But what this is going to do is really help us to cement what direction that we want to move in and where we're focused. And that is going to help us to put that momentum into something purposeful, into something positive. And I think if we can keep course correcting within to come to that point of truth, how can I do the greatest good? How can I be of the highest service to the people in my life right now, or to the people that I serve? For me, that's across my platforms and the people in my life on a personal level. How can I be the best version of myself in these situations? And when we come back to that question, we find very clear answers sometimes, because it gives you a very obvious perspective, or an obvious train of thought where we can ask other questions like, well, who do I need to be? What habits would I change? What could I possibly stop? Is there something that I need to do? Is there something I need to learn? These are just example questions, but that was the other kind of train of thought that I'd been on with this one. And some of these themes that are coming up at the moment are, if we're talking about changing careers, or just because that was my example at the very beginning, something like that can take a very long time. And it wasn't like I'm not bringing this back to me again. But it wasn't like I sort of went, okay, so I'm not going to do cake decorating anymore. I know, I'll do this instead. It took me about 18 months and a period of depression, actually, to really journal. And I go through the self-inquiry to find what it was that I felt called to do. And then to get over myself and to begin to find ways of articulating that. And actually, that was a huge process for me, because it wasn't answered all in one go. But piece by piece, it led me on the right path, in the right direction, that ultimately brought me to here. And it keeps changing. So don't be worried if you don't get all of the answers in one go. I often find we have enough in order to keep us going, if that makes sense, to get us to, you know, not in a negative sense, but it's kind of like breadcrumbs. So we take the next one. Think like Hansel and Gretel breadcrumbs. You know, you find your way back gradually, because piece by piece there is something there in front of you, and you just keep walking towards it and you find your way. So that's how I see it. Anyway, I'm going to do a couple of readings for you. And if you're still here with me and you've been here with me all this time, then I'm very, very grateful for your time. I do appreciate it, and sending you lots of love. And if you're new, then please feel free to like, share, or subscribe, or check out my Instagram, which should be linked below. Let's get some readings. This can be kind of noisy as well, so apologies. What do we have? We've got Tivaz in the reverse. Now, Tivaz speaks of truth, of justice, of balance, of fairness. So this, when we ask ourselves, what is my truth about a situation, as I was just talking about, this is also asking, one of the questions that we can ask is, what feels unfair? What doesn't feel right? What doesn't feel good in my life right now? This is asking us to look at what isn't in alignment, what feels wrong even. And from that, we can work backwards. This is asking us to look at it from a different perspective and to work backwards in order to find what it is that we actually want or feel in alignment with. Because there are often two flip sides, you know. Just as an example, just because this is the visual that they just gave me. Say, for example, you're not feeling very well with your health, or with your diet, and you want to make some changes, and you're like, okay, well, what am I feeling, you know? And it's when you eat certain things. So maybe then you decide that you were going to be vegetarian or vegan, or you decide you're going to do the carnivore diet. You know, flip side, it's very, very personal, but it's asking the right questions in order to get those answers about what feels most right to you. And just because something seems right to other people in your life doesn't necessarily mean it feels right to you. So the purpose and the importance of this self-inquiry is asking and connecting with ourselves at our deepest levels, because that truth is known within us and will often be guiding us on a path that is very unique to us. It doesn't have to be unique within the whole world. It doesn't make us, you know, any better than anyone else. It's just that there is a wisdom within you, and there is a magic that you can work with to help you. But it's your highest truth. Let's get one more. Ooh, we have Yera. So this speaks of cycles, of harvest, of completion. So this, I would ask, you know, what has come to a point of completion in your life right now? Where do you feel as though something is done? It's run its course. You know, we would look at Yera as, you know, we can say that the word etymologically, year comes from Yera. So it represents that cycle of time. And that would have been far more important to our ancestors than it would necessarily be to us when we think of their harvest and what they yielded from that, and how that would need to sustain them for the following year, for the crops to go again. We live a very different life now where we don't have that same reliance. But if we were to put that kind of overlay on our life, what do we really feel has served its purpose in our life now? What do we not wish to carry through with us for another year? What really, I mean, if there is something that you're doing right now, again, just the visual that they're giving me, maybe it's going out and partying every weekend. It's no problem with that. I say this with no judgment, but maybe there's a part of you that's like, do you know what? Do I really want to be doing this? Like every single weekend? Maybe if I wasn't doing that, I could do this weekend course, and then I might get to the point where I can change my career. And you know that that's going to take you a period of time, but it feels like the right thing for you to do. So this is asking us to look at those cycles which feel complete, or have served their purpose, or no longer perhaps have a purpose in our lives, a role in our lives. But something feels like it's done its time. I'll just say it that way. I think that's the plainest way I can say it. Let's get one more. Yeah, I can. I love this rune. This is all about growth. This represents a very strong feminine energy. It can represent fertility, especially feminine fertility, if that is relevant to you. But it speaks of being able to bring things to life. So what are you birthing in your life right now? What are you ready to bring to life? There is something new. But with that process, there is a gestational period. There is a time at which, like I said, with the Yiru, maybe you're looking at something like there's no way you're ever going to be able to find the time. But maybe it's about finding a small change that you can implement. And it may mean committing to a process that's going to take you a period of time, but it's going to help you to grow. It's going to get you to where you want to go, or at least get you on the path to where you want to go. And ultimately, if you want to experience change in your life, you have to allow change to happen. We can't, I think it's Einstein that said the definition of insanity is doing the same things all the time and expecting a different result. So at some point, we have to pay the toll and we have to make the changes and we have to commit to those changes in order to see results. So this is not so much focused on the results, but the process, that germination process, the period of time where you were in the doing and the being of the change, like being in a cocoon. There will be a time at which you emerge and a time at which you decide it's time to go into that to create these changes. And right now you could be at any point in your own journey within that transitional phase. But really trusting that there is a process here, a bigger process that's going to lead to something. And sometimes we have to trust that, but actually put ourselves in a position where we are making those changes to see the changes. I hope that makes sense. Anyway, I'm going to leave this here for you. But I hope you enjoyed this. If you've watched to the end, then thank you so much for sharing your time with me. I wish you a really happy full moon. I hope this was helpful and just sending you all my love. Okay. Bye-bye.